All right, we got power. Uh-oh, not anymore. What's up guys, welcome back to Nuts and Bolts Auto, and today I'm going to show you 5 easy ways to check your fuses. You may be wanting to check your fuses because you were just messing around with some electronics on your vehicle and you shorted the wire out just like you saw earlier in the video. And if that happens, well, just come over here to the fuse box and you'll probably find a blown fuse. And another reason would be if you're trying to fix something that blew a fuse on your vehicle, whether it's your headlights or any kind of motor on the vehicle. Now ideally you don't want to just go poking around all the fuses. That's kind of a waste of time. So you'd want to go and look to find the specific fuse for the circuit you're trying to fix. And a lot of the times when you pull off the cover for something like this, you'll be able to look on the back and it'll show you the fuse box diagram. In my case, my vehicle doesn't have that, so I had to go out and find it online. So right now I'm looking at the 30 amp cigar lighter fuse, which is number 17. And then if you look right here on the diagram, you just count how many down, and then that's the number 17 right there. So according to the diagram, this 30 amp fuse is going to be the blown one. Now for the first way to check a fuse, once you know which fuse it is that you need to pull, you grab your fuse puller, put it over, and then pull it out. Once you've got the fuse out, you can look at it and just visually be able to tell if it's blown or not. As you can see right there, the piece of metal inside is broken and burnt, so this won't allow current to flow through the circuit and you need to replace this fuse. Alright, so right there you saw the first way to check your fuses is visually. Now for the second way, you'd need a multimeter, and you'd get your multimeter and put it over to continuity. What this is going to do is that it's going to make it so when there is continuity, in other words there is a path for the current to flow between the leads, it'll make a sound. If your fuse is outside already of the vehicle, then you can touch it, and right there you can also tell that the fuse is blown. Just as an example, I've got a brand new fuse right here, and you can hear that there's continuity. The third and most common way to check fuses is with a test light. These are pretty cheap and you could probably get them for around $2-3, maybe at the dollar store. So this test light's gonna work by having a ground. You're going to put this clamp anywhere on a piece of metal on the vehicle. You can put it on a bolt over here, wherever, but I'm just putting it right here because that's bare metal right there. This tip right here, the probe, is just going to allow the current to flow through it and light up the test light if there is voltage. Now to get started, you don't want to just test the fuses as is right there, because there's a lot of circuits that you need to open the key for, and there's even some circuits that they won't have power at all unless they're running. For example, your windshield wipers, that won't have current flowing through the fuse unless the wipers are actually running, and then you'd want to turn them on and then test the fuse. Now to get started, I'm going to put the keys in the ignition and put it on the on position. So now you'd get your test light, and then you can probe one side of the fuse and check for voltage right there. As you can see, the test light turned on. And then you'd want to test the other side as well. And if you get the light on both ends, that means your fuse is okay. And then if you're just going at it checking all the fuses, well, you can go real quick from one fuse to the next. And as you can see right here on our blown fuse, we have voltage present on one side, but there is no voltage present on the other side. So that means that the current's only making it this far in the circuit, and we need to replace this fuse. Now right here I ran into a fuse that has no power at it, and when I look over here on the diagram, it's number 7, and that is for the illuminated switches. My lights aren't on, so that's why there's no power going through the fuse. If I turn on the lights right now though, now you can see that the fuse is okay. The fourth way to check the fuses would be using the multimeter again, and this time you want to be checking for voltage. So you would set the multimeter at the 20 volt scale. The black or ground lead, you want to put this on the same piece of metal or bolt or wherever that you have a good ground to. And then you're going to be using the red lead or the red probe to be touching the fuse ends, checking for voltage. Alright, so I got my ground lead on a bolt right here. That's hopefully a good ground. And then I got my positive lead, and I'm going to be using that to test for voltage. And if you can see right there, it's 12.15. The voltage right now isn't that important. You just want to make sure that there's voltage present at both ends of the fuse. And then if I go to my blown fuse again, you can see 12.15 on one side, and then the other side stays at 0. So once again, that's telling me that's a blown fuse. And to make it a little bit easier to get the readings for the ground probe right here, you can take it off if you got these kinds of leads and then put the ground clamp on there. And then you got the same setup as a test light, and you can clamp on to any piece of metal, and it makes it easier to get the readings. And the last way that I'm going to talk about today about checking fuses is with the power probe. And this would be my favorite way of doing it, and especially if you're a technician, this is on hand, so it goes by really fast checking all the fuses. And I like this one because it gives you an audible tone as well as telling you the voltage right here, which makes it really easy to identify and move by really quick through a lot of fuses. Now to use this, you want to put the positive lead on the positive side of the battery, and you put the ground, and as you heard, it just turned on. So right here with your power probe, you're going to put the same thing on one end of the circuit and then the other end of the circuit, and you can go on testing your fuses. And again, once we get to our blown fuse, you're going to hear it beep on one side and you won't hear anything on the other side. So now that I've verified that the fuse is blown 5 different ways, I'm going to grab the fuse puller, put it over the blown fuse, and pull the fuse out. So all these same ways to check the fuses will work with all these kinds of fuses. Now there's these kinds of fuses too, the square ones, and these ones you can pretty much only tell using the continuity tester or visually checking it to make sure that the wire is still intact. And if you're trying to diagnose a system where the fuse keeps blowing over and over and over, you wouldn't want to just keep popping in fuses to test the circuit and having them blow, because then you're just wasting fuses, and fuses cost money. So in that case, you would get yourself a circuit breaker and then pop that in there instead. Now these circuit breakers pop or trip, and then they automatically reset a little while after once it cools down inside. So this will help you diagnose problems without having to waste fuses. One final thing to add is that when you're replacing the fuse and installing the new one, you want to make sure to always install a fuse rated to the same capacity as what was in there to begin with, because these fuses are installed there knowing what it takes to protect the circuit, and they're supposed to be the weakest link. In other words, this is what's supposed to blow first, before the wiring, before the component, before the motor, before everything else. This is the weakest link. So by putting in a bigger one, you make it to where the wiring becomes the weakest link, or the light bulb becomes the weakest link, and then you could cause a fire if you put a bigger fuse than what was on there to begin with. And to install a fuse, it doesn't matter which way it goes, because it's just a piece of metal running through and then comes out to another piece of metal. So you can put it upside down, whichever which way you want to put it, it's the same thing. Now we put in the new fuse and just push it in, make sure it's nice and snug. So there you go, guys. I hope this video helped you guys out. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all those other goodies. Thank you.